The NBA deadline for teams and players to decide on their options for next season has now passed, and some fateful decisions were made about several members of this Philadelphia 76ers team. While Eric Gordon has declined his player option for next season, the door is not closed on him remaining with the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to break down a little bit of this unique situation and weigh through the options of whether or not we should be rooting for Eric Gordon to be back on this Sixers team. Now, of course, we did get the update from Shams Charania saying Philadelphia 76ers guard Eric Gordon is declining his $3.4 million player option to explore free agency, sources tell ESPN. A return to the 76ers is still possible. We did have seen some reported mutual interest, such as this report from Kyle Neubeck here that said, would not be surprised if Gordon returns despite the declined option. Believe there is mutual interest between him and the Sixers, and that his shooting plus relationship with Edgecombe will loom large. Now, to take the bare bones of this situation as a whole, this is a bit of a salary cap intricacy situation. And what it means exactly is Eric Gordon's contract as a whole was a 2-year deal with the second year as a player option last year. The salary cap increased across the entire NBA to this point. So for the Sixers, it would be advantageous to get his salary off the books in the short term, and then you can give him a veteran's minimum, which would actually be a pay raise for Eric Gordon because the salary cap increased. I think it's important to keep in mind as we weigh through these salaries and options here, it is all percentage based on the cap. So when that salary cap number goes up, so do max contracts, so do minimum contracts, and everything in between with that. The MLE, you can go down the list. That's why if you look down the line at like Joel Embiid's contract, that it's listed as estimate for years down the line. Is they don't know exactly. What they do know is it's going to be 35% of whatever the salary cap is, because that is what a max contract for a player of his vicinity works. So for Eric Gordon specifically, basically the situation was we can scratch your back if you scratch ours a little bit, and who knows, maybe he does truly explore the open market and find a team that he would prefer, or a team willing to pay him more than the Sixers should. Now, I did want to sort through a couple things. It was a strange season for Eric Gordon last year. Let's not forget, I had some excitement then when Gordon was brought to this team because of what a high-level sniper and shooter that he is, a guy with experience, playoff experience, I thought could maximize playing next to Joel Embiid, but we did not get to see that very often. Now, he played more than you guys would think. That the layout, the guard minutes that we saw from this team last year, that Eric Gordon himself playing over 700 minutes is pretty crazy there. Now, he went through a stretch where he really struggled as a shooter. Then he went through a stretch where he could not miss for a period of time, and ultimately did kind of simmer down towards the tail end of the season. To me, the biggest selling point for Eric Gordon potentially remaining with the Sixers team is very clearly his relationship with VJ Edgecombe here. And we have talked a bit about this as a whole. We got this funny quote from Edgecombe coming draft night here that he said, he was asked about Eric Gordon. He said, "It's crazy me and EG are teammates. EG is old, man." And to give the full quote that he did lay out here, that VJ Edgecombe being teammates with Eric Gordon, quote, "It means a lot. It's crazy that me and EG are teammates now. I tell him all the time. It's a great thing. There'll be someone I already know on the team, and that can just help me in the ways of longevity or how to play a role, just stuff like that. Can teach me life on and off the court." So kind of a cool perspective there. And of course, to highlight exactly what the relationship is these guys competed together for the Bahamas in the Olympics this past summer here. Buddy Hield also on that team, and he also had mentioned Buddy had nothing but love to speak about Philadelphia, spoke really highly of, and DeAndre Ayton also on that team, who's not a guy I really want VJ Edgecombe hanging out with or getting habits to pick up from. But nonetheless, that we do know that there is a bit of that relationship here. The only pushback to that is it feels like there is a chance where the Sixers are sacrificing 2 roster spots here. By that, I mean with Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry. When looking at the Sixers guard rotation as a whole here, that the clear-cut top 4 are Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes, and VJ Edgecombe. Those have to be the priorities for the Sixers team from a development and impact standpoint. I understand that there is value in like a locker room leader position and having vets for these young players to learn from, bounce ideas off, learn the ropes for how the NBA game is played. But I do think it would be a bit repetitive if Kyle Lowry is here essentially as a mentor to Jared McCain, and then Eric Gordon is here from more of a mentor role to VJ Edgecombe. Now, do the Sixers ultimately believe that Eric Gordon can still contribute as a basketball player? Is that the selling point there? I'm a bit skeptical of that in itself. But we will see ultimately. It wouldn't kill the Sixers team to have both these guys on the team, or Eric Gordon in particular. And I think if you were to pin me down and make a prediction, I do think it is likely that he is back with Philadelphia. And maybe it goes better. I think he hated it here last year. I've heard on fairly legitimate terms here that he's been at least a part of some of the leaks that they did not want getting out last year. And I'm kind of shocked that Eric Gordon isn't just taking his ball and going home and wanting out of here. But nonetheless, it does seem like that door is kept ajar. But the only point that I would push back once again here is the commitment or lesson that was learned from Daryl Morey at the tail end of the season is we need to get younger and we need to get more athletic. We've taken some steps in that. VJ Edgecombe, come on down, who checks both those boxes very clearly there. But if you're bringing back Lowry and Eric Gordon, what are we really doing here? And there is a concern that, yes, I get injuries were the primary reason, that Joel Embiid barely played. We have almost zero sample size of what it looks like when Paul George shares the floor with Joel and Tyrese Maxey here. But it really kind of feels like we're just running it back a year after having the 3rd overall pick in the draft here. And that isn't the best sign to me. But nonetheless, for Eric Gordon in particular, this is something that I think should be celebrated in the short term, that there is a real chance that he's just trying to help out the Sixers team and that he will be back on roster. So kind of a unique situation. And just to run through the list one more time, that we do know Andre Drummond opted into the player option. He wasn't walking away from those $5 million on the table, which was more than his market value. Kelly Oubre Jr. opted into his $8 million player option here. That is a guy that I am happy about is back, and I gave my full feelings on that in a previous video you can check out. Jared Butler, the end of the road, the end of the era in Philadelphia. Lonnie Walker, also a guy who is at the end of the road, that his option was declined by the Sixers there. For Lonnie, I liked Lonnie Walker. I think it was nice. It was worth taking a chance on him. You freed him from overseas, brought him back to America, gave an opportunity at the NBA once again, but the reality is they have to be very strategic with these guard roster spots, and he was not a guy that I think was worth sacrificing that for. So we'll be wishing Lonnie the best and do hope this jump starts the rest of his NBA career, but I don't think that will be happening in Philadelphia there. So a couple interesting odds and ends there. Today is the official start of NBA free agency, so there should begin to be some rumors, some news. We did get a concerning report of Quentin Grimes commanding $25 million per year is what his camp is asking for. The only thing I'll say there is it's kind of how you negotiate, is you start high and come on down from his perspective, and I don't think ultimately there's any threat of any team swooping in. The Brooklyn Nets are really the only team that you can evaluate. The Pistons kind of, after the Malik Beasley suspension due to his gambling accusations there, that they have some potential money that is freed up and they could attack Grimes, but they've also already had Quentin Grimes, and one would think that if they had liked him that much, they would have taken the necessary steps to make sure he remains with the organization. So ultimately, I think there is a fairly clear path to Quentin Grimes being back with that Sixers team, but that is probably the biggest news that we have to keep an eye on for these first couple days of free agency. He is a restricted free agent. The offer sheet has been signed, which means essentially that if Grimes wanted to, he could bet on himself and become an unrestricted free agent by just opting into this $8.7 million deal, but it does seem like all outcomes are trending towards him signing a multi-year deal with the Sixers team, and I think that is the right call from both sides of things. So we're just getting started for what this offseason will bring for the Sixers. Eric Gordon will be one of those storylines to keep in mind as we begin to navigate down the list, but we should begin to get more and more news, more and more rumors, and maybe some structure for who exactly will be brought in. It's been every season since Daryl Morey has taken control that there tends to be a couple of surprises in the free agent market, whether it is Georges Niang or Gershon Yabusele, whoever it is in between. So very excited to see what he has up his sleeve. We're going to be all over things from start to finish here on Sixers Digest. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you have not already. Tapping in, and I will be on top of the news as soon as it breaks. So appreciate you guys for tuning in this video here. Make sure you're hitting a like on this, dropping your thoughts below, and I'll be back talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.